So, hello and welcome everyone. My name is Stefan Gebele, and today I'd like to explain how easy it is to send data from a Siemens S7 1500 to Amazon Web Services. So the session today is separated in two parts, one theoretical and one practical. I will start with the theoretical one, which deals with the question what MQTT is and how it works. In Chapter 3, I will give you a brief overview about the dataFEED OPC Suite, the software which we are using today to send data to the cloud. This is followed by the actual live demonstration. So again, what is MQTT? MQTT is short for Message Queuing Telemetry Transport, and it is an application protocol. Maybe you've heard of OPC UA or HTTP. MQTT is simply another way of communication. And the advantage of MQTT is that it's a lightweight protocol. That means that your devices which have implemented MQTT does not need much computing power or resources, and therefore it's ideal for IoT devices like small sensors or even cars. The underlying architecture is publisher-subscriber. I will explain what that is on the next slide. The transport protocol which is used by MQTT is TCP, and a few words to the security. Authentication can be done via username and password or certificates, and of course we can also encrypt the data by using SSL connection. So how does MQTT work? So it is separated in three parts. We have on the left side a publisher, in the middle is the broker, which is some kind of distributor or dispatcher, and of the right hand side we have the subscribers. So the publisher is that part that generates and sends the data to the broker, and the subscriber are that part which are interested in the messages or only in specific messages, and they do a subscription on the broker, and the broker will send the message as soon as they are available to the subscribers. Important to mention is that we are using the dataFEED OPC Suite today, which represents the publisher. And the broker and subscriber are located in the cloud, in the AWS cloud. So what is the dataFEED OPC Suite? It is easily explained what the dataFEED OPC Suite does by looking at this picture. So you can see on the left hand side a couple of data sources where we can collect data from. So for instance, we can collect data from an OPC UA server, but we can also collect data from PLCs from different vendors. Siemens, we could also connect to a Rockwell, Mitsubishi, Vago, everything is possible. We could also grab data from a SQL database or from an OPC Classic server. And once we have done that, we can decide to which data destination we want to send that data or we want to provide that data. Possible example would be we want to grab data from an OPC UA server, so my data source is OPC UA, and I want to convert this data to a data destination OPC Classic. Or another example would be we collect data from a PLC and the destination would be our SQL database. So we collect data from the PLC and write that data into a database. So in the session today, what are we doing today is we establish a connection between dataFEED OPC Suite and the S7 1500. Then we have to establish a connection between the dataFEED OPC Suite and the Amazon Web Services. And the third step is that we have to do a so-called mapping. So we have to decide which data we want to send. This is already the end of the theoretical part. I will now start with the practical part. So what I have to do first is I have to start the dataFEED OPC Suite configurator. It looks like that. And again, it's split here in the section data source and data destination. Data source is the section where I can specify from which data source I want to collect data. So in my case, it is a Siemens, but also other data sources are possible, like database or Mitsubishi, B&R. We can collect data from a Rockwell PLC. So in my case, I've clicked on Siemens and I add a new data source by clicking at this button. I have to specify a name. Let's call it as Siemens 1500. And now I have to specify which protocol I'm using. So in my case, because it's an S7 1500, I'm using the S7-2 protocol, which allows me browsing, so I can see what data is provided by the PLC. I don't have to do a symbol import, and I can also access optimized data blocks. I don't have to program anything on the PLC, it's just a plug and play. So I press next, and of course I have to configure the IP address of my PLC. I do a connection test and it says successful. I proceed here. I can enable some filters, but it's not necessary here. So I press next. And now you can see I haven't done a symbol import, but I can directly browse all the variables which are available on my PLC. So the first step, establish a connection between dataFEED OPC Suite and Siemens, is done. The next step is that I want to establish a connection to my cloud. So I have to do some configuration on the cloud side. I have logged me in, and this is actually the landing page of AWS. So we want to send data to the Internet of Things platform, so we use here under the Internet of Things section IoT Core. So I click on it, and now I go on the section Manage Things. And I will now have to create a new thing, a new object, which represents my physical device. So I click here on Register a Thing, and it's only a single thing, not many, not a bulk register. So I want to create a single thing. I have to specify here a name. Let's call it Siemens PLC. And I copy that name for a later use. It's good. So this is pretty much everything what I need to do here. Just have specified a name. I can add here some additional information, but it's optional. So I press next. And now I have to select here a method how the authentication is done. Authentication is here with certificates. So I'm using here the recommended way, meaning that the certificates are generated by AWS. Could also provide my own certificate. I'm using here the recommended way. So I click on Create Certificates. Now it has created me here the certificate, and I click on Download. I need that for a later use. Very, very important is that we have to press this button. I have to activate the certificates. So press on that. And this is the first step. What I have done now is I have created a type, I have created a thing, and I have also created the certificates. What I have to do next is I have to specify what is allowed. So if a device connects with the corresponding certificates, I have to specify, is it allowed to connect, is it allowed to publish, is it allowed to delete something, and this is done by the section secure policies. So I have to create a new policy. Click on create and I give it a name, let's say PLC policy, and I have to enter here. So what is allowed? My device, the dataFEED OPC Suite, should be allowed to connect, and this is done by IoT:connect. I have to replace that here with my client ID. I can specify that could be everything. I'm using client ID is again Siemens PLC, and the effect is allow. So then I have to add another statement. It should be allowed to connect, and it should also be allowed to publish messages. So publish, and I have now to replace that with a topic, so it could be everything. I could also replace that with an asterisk, which means that I can publish to any topics. In my case, I'm publishing a temperature value, so I'm using that temperature. So this is everything what I need to do here. I have now created policy, and the last thing what I have to do is to attach that policy to my certificate. So I go back to the certificate section, click here on attach policy and select this. So this is already everything what I need to configure on the cloud side. I go now back to the dataFEED OPC Suite, to my section data destination, and I want to send data to an MQTT broker. So I click on add data destination. I can specify their name. Sorry. And my client ID is that name which I have specified before. In my case, it was Siemens PLC. I'm using the secure version of MQTT, the SSL connection. And now I have to enter here the IP address and the host name. So the IP address is found here under the settings section, endpoint. And the port which is used is 8883 for the secure version. So the authentication, I've already mentioned it, is done with client certificates. So maybe you have seen my other webinars connecting to Azure. This is normally done by username and password, but in AWS it's different. We're using client certificates to authenticate. So I'm enable this box, and now I have to import the certificates which have been created previously by AWS. So go here to click on it, and then I have, it says here private key, and this is the private key which is needed. It's not password protected, so I can leave that free. Now I do a connection test and it says successfully. That's good. So I proceed here and now I have to specify my topics. I have specified it already in the policy that it's only allowed to publish to a topic called temperature. So I can paste and copy that. Temperature. And very important is that we disable the retain flag. Retain means that the last message is saved on the broker side. And this is simply not supported by AWS. If you leave that as it is, it will reject your messages. So I disable this, and that's already everything what I need to do on this side. So I press next. Could be enable here the last will settings, which mean that I can specify a message which is sent by in the beginning of the communication, and as soon as the dataFEED suite disconnects ungracefully, the broker, the AWS, will forward a message, the so-called lost will message, to the underlying subscribers. And you can specify also the message what should be contained, maybe disconnect or something else. So I leave that as it is because it's an optional. Store and forward, could also select store and forward. It's not necessary in this demo. So what I have done is I have established a connection between dataFEED OPC Suite and AWS. The last thing what I have to do is a mapping. So I have to decide which data I want to send. And this is done by the data processing section under Exchange. So I activate Exchange and I want to exchange data between S7 1500. This is my source, data blocks. I want to send that room temperature value to my cloud. Click here on the match button. And the trigger type is here item-based, meaning that every time the variable is changing, it sends a new message. It's also possible to change the trigger type to timer or variable trigger type. Variable trigger type means that the trigger is fired depending on your settings. For example, temperature is higher than 25 degrees. I'm using timer, so I have to create a new timer. I call it timer 1 second. So I want to send every second a message regardless if data is changing or not. It's an interval timer. In time interval is 1000 milliseconds, which is 1 second. And I press finish. The last thing what I have to do is to start actually the dataFEED OPC Suite. Now it started and data should arrive here in AWS. I can see the data under the test section. And I want to describe to a topic. I'm using that wildcard, that hashtag, which means that it shows me all the data which has been sent to the AWS. So subscribe, and now I can see that my data is here received. I have the temperature sensor in my office, so I can heat it up a little bit, and let's see if the temperature value increases. Yes, can see it goes up. So this is already the end of the theoretical part and the practical part. So it's now time to answer questions. I can see we have some questions here. No sound, no sound. Okay, we have solved that problem. Okay, I'm a trainer, coach on IoT, and IoT is this dataFEED available free for giving training? Yes. It's also given a free access. Well, the thing is, you can download, I haven't mentioned it before, but the dataFEED OPC Suite can be downloaded via on the web page. I will show you on the last slide what the web page is. And it's a free trial version for 72 hours. And after 72 hours, you just have to restart the dataFEED OPC Suite again, and then you have another 72 hours. So it's completely free. You can simply download it under our web page. The next question is, I suppose that more functionality will be added for data processing. Yes, we are always continuing to improve our products, and we will definitely add here some more functionalities. Okay, so was this everything? Okay. So additionally, if you have any questions, you can always send me an email. And of course, you will get all the information. You will receive a follow-up email containing a record of this webinar and containing the presentation as well. And on top, you get also a step-by-step tutorial how to connect the dataFEED OPC Suite with the cloud. So no, I don't see here any more questions. That's good. Okay, at this time, I'd like to say thank you for your attention and your time. I hope you enjoyed the webinar. Sorry again for the problems with the sound at the beginning. Keep care and goodbye.